Hey, I'm Janet Shahaki, the founder and CEO of Jansen. And I'm back here today in Gainesville, Virginia. Basically, this represents kind of where I grew up. We moved here when I was 9. That was the house I basically grew up in. And great memories. And sometimes when you think about your story, you need to go back to those early moments. And for me, it's here. Great neighbors at the time. We had a lot of fun, kind of what we call just good old homegrown type of activities we would do. And I think it's important to come back and see where you came from and connect. And it's part of my story. I'm the youngest of 3 and a native of Virginia, and I'm so happy to be back here. You think back about kind of when are those moments that as you're growing up, you're thinking, what am I going to do? And I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't come from a family of means that could someone afford to send me off to college and kind of figure it out. And very blessed to have a godly Christian mother, but I wasn't sure. And so I started working full time. And of course, most of all this is recorded in my book, but I started working full time at an aerospace company and I fell in love with it. I thought it was awesome. And I ended up staying there almost 10 years and they paid my way to college. I worked full time and went to school at night, which was amazing. Hard, but amazing. But it was actually in this neighborhood. The neighbors back there used to have an in-ground pool and we were always over there, or we were always down at the pond in the winter playing. My brother made sure we all knew how to play flag football. I'm the youngest of 3. I have an older brother and an older sister. But it was in this neighborhood. Playing with my friends, we'd build forts, we'd play on the pond, on the ice when it froze over, that I knew probably by 15 that I was going to own a company one day, but I didn't know what it was going to be. And I'm just really thankful to come back here and, it's changed a lot. It doesn't look like the way it was when we lived here, but, everyone has a story. And everyone, no matter what has happened in your past or kind of what your story consists of, if you believe that God can take anybody, look what he did to Paul. On the road to Damascus. Saul he had already been persecuting Christians and he was on his way to do some more. And there's that moment, that transformative moment when he says, Saul, I've got a plan for your life and it's not this. And if we think about our life in terms of Jan, I've got a plan for your life. John, I've got a plan for your life. Larry, I got a plan for your life. Whatever your name is. He has a plan. The challenge I think that we run into is we just get caught up living our life and we don't stop long enough, at least I didn't for a long time, stop long enough and go, wait a minute, am I living the life and am I fulfilling the purpose that he created me for? And I'd love to tell you that I've been doing it ever since I was 15 and the answer is no, I haven't. It doesn't matter. Yeah, I was saved when I was 14 and I grew up in a great church. And speaking of church, our friends from church would come over from Bethlehem Baptist. Oh my gosh, we had so many memories at Bethlehem. But they would come over after church. The Steins would let us have big pool parties and cookouts and shooting off fireworks all over the neighborhood. We were the kind of the place to be. Great, great, great memories. Unfortunately, Bethlehem dissolved over the years, but man, I think about all the wonderful people that I grew up with and the memories that we had. And I've held on to some of that as I have progressed in life. You can't live in the past. I thank God I'm not the same person today that I was when I was younger. If you're not growing, you're dying, and that's just a fact of life. But I've always had a desire to push myself. So it was actually when I lived at this home that I don't know, I was probably 11 or 12 or something. And I said, I'm going to start making me some money. And I started selling holiday cards. And of course, I started like in August, right? I would go from all these houses right across the street and all of them and say, hey, listen, do you want to go ahead and order your custom holiday cards? And they'd say, Janet, it's only August. I'm like, but before you know it, the holidays are going to be here. And every year I was like up in the top of the crowd with being in sales, but I was always focused on relationships. Now, that doesn't mean to say that all the relationships I've had have always worked out. They haven't. Things change, people sometimes don't like the decisions that you make. I haven't liked some of the decisions I've made, but I look back now, I'm 52 years old, and it's not about living a perfect life, because that's just not possible. It's about living a convicted life and living a life that says, Lord, I want to do what you call me to do, and I want to be what you called me to be, and I want to go where you've called me to go. It was at this house that I thought by the age of 27 I'd be married and have 5 boys running around, and of course that hasn't happened. And I think for the longest time, my career was just such a big part of my life. And I'll be honest with you, and I'll tell you why. My parents divorced when I was very young, and I saw my mother really struggle. And I thought, man, I don't want a man to put me in that predicament one day. I need to be able to generate my own income, and I need to be able to take care of my own self and let God take care of the rest. And then in my 30s, I thought I was going to get married, and for anybody who knows that story, it's a pretty comical story. And then you wake up and you're like, oh my gosh, how did I turn 50? It just happened. But I think that I heard a friend of a colleague, actually an acquaintance earlier this year, said, there's such a beauty in singleness. I'm not saying I want to be single the rest of my life, I don't. But I look at the things that God has allowed me to do. And I look at the places. I mean, here from Virginia, I've traveled all over the world. I'm able to support missionaries, like personally, like I don't have to go through a church. I personally support them, and I stay in touch with them. And I've been able to help raise, not literally, but metaphorically, a lot of young people. I mean, I've poured into a lot of lives of young people and taken kids on vacation. Some of the parents could afford it, some of the parents couldn't afford it. And I'm like, don't worry about it. I'm gonna, I was taking my nieces and nephews, and they wanted to bring their friends, and I never made it a financial obligation if their friends wanted to come and maybe their parents couldn't afford it. I'm like, come on, you're going. And I thank the Lord for that opportunity. But I will tell you, most people know of the story about when I almost lost it all, and this is not the time to keep talking about it. But, if you're not careful in life, your skis will get out, too far in front, and that happened back in 2002, and I almost lost the business. So I was going to stay in the business long enough to pay all the debts off. Well, that's been like many, many years now. But, my brother had a big part of my growing up. He was a Cowboy fan, so I was going to be a Cowboy fan. I always looked up to him. I still do. He's a very successful leader in what he does, and I'm just really thankful for the people that God allows me to work with, the places that He's allowed me to go, the things He's allowed me to, experience. And I just be honest with you, I just want to be a blessing to people. I want to, some people probably think I'm a curse, but most people probably think I'm a blessing. I don't know. A lot of people have been a blessing to me. A lot of people have. And, I was taught never forget where you came from. And I think coming back here today just kind of reminds you, what, these were good memories. And my time at Bethlehem, those were great memories. A lot of people want to scratch their memories. No, you have to stay focused on the windshield. You've got to stay focused on what's ahead. But every now and then glance up and look at the past and smile. And that doesn't mean my past growing up was, pain-free. It wasn't. But you stay focused on that which is ahead. And that's what I've tried to do. I think what's so fantastic when you kind of come back to areas of your life where you spent a lot of time growing up as a young person is that you're reminded of your story. And there's parts of your story you probably want to remember, and there's probably parts you want to forget. And same is true with me. But all of us have a story. And you got to unpack the goodness of your story, and you got to unpack the blessings of your story. And that's what I love about what we do at Jansen. It's not just about, working in the market that we work in. Every client that we work with, we want to find, like, what's your story? What's that so what moment that people can really connect with? And whether it's the great team that we've got here in the Northern Virginia and DC area, or down at Quantico, or the great team that we have in the office that we just stood up in Atlanta. And I don't know, we may have another office someplace someday, but I'm not throttling on that, even though I'm a highly competitive person. And I say that in a good way, like I don't like to win, but I also know it's like, well, if God's closing that door, He's closing that door. I don't think I would have had those responses like in my 30s and maybe my early 40s, but now in my early 50s, I definitely accept more like, this door's closing, God's doing it for a reason. This door's opening, God's doing it for a reason. And I think that just kind of wisdom just kind of comes in time. It's kind of unfortunate it took me so long to figure that out. But that's what I'm really thankful for, like just, you know, the friends and the quality of friends that God can bring into your life. It's really important to put people in your life that will really tell you what you need to hear. And when I kind of look at my hand, I kind of go, you know what? That pastor's not far off. There's probably only 5 or 6 people in my life that I can really be myself with, and they can be themselves with me. And you know, the Bible says iron needs to sharpen iron, but you have to want to be sharpened. I always wanted to be sharpened, even to this day. You know, I'll give you this example real quick. This year we decided we're going to put a training program in place for Jansen. We want to encourage our employees to kind of throttle it in and take classes and expand. So something we did this year at Jansen is we shined a bright light on our training program and really encouraging our employees, hey listen, I know you're carrying heavy workloads, but we want to keep investing in you, training and strengthening your skills. Well, I took the advice myself, even though I've got a degree and I've worked for years with an organizational coach who actually was a professor at Wharton, the Wharton School of Business. I put myself in classes this year. I'm going to Cornell and taking a 6-month executive leadership development program. I don't say that to brag. I say never stop growing, never stop pushing yourself, never stop reading or listening or talking and expanding your mind, or, you know, it's just amazing things to learn. And I think God's just got so much in all of us that he just wants to bring out. But I think sometimes we focus on our comfort. Well, I got news for you, and I can speak from experience. God is not interested in my comfort. He's interested in my character. And I believe the same is true for all of us. Hey, listen, I'm really glad you could spend a few minutes with me here today to kind of come back to, you know, a place that I spent a lot of years growing up with a lot of wonderful people, having some great times. And it's good. It's good to be reminded of where I've come from. It's good to be reminded of what the Lord has done. You know, there's an old Baptist song. It says, gospel song, count your many blessings and name them one by one, and it may surprise you what the Lord has done.